Hello, and welcome to my video essay about the Civil War. I am Mariana Garcia, and I will be covering many aspects surrounding this event. This is a very important historical event that must be recognized worldwide, since it started the path for improvement in society, which was later transmitted in other parts of the world. What I mean by this is reflected in Paul Kivel's phrase: sometimes change comes not in the first round, but in the second, third, or fourth. Change starts with one person questioning, challenging, speaking up, and doing something to make a difference. We can each make a difference because each of us is already part of a community where racism exists and thrives. Perhaps right now you don't understand the relevance this phrase has to the event and the development of new ideas, both for good and bad, which is why it is necessary to analyze the events in a more in-depth way. There are various reasons why this event went down, but it is necessary to take into account economic, political, and most importantly, social characteristics present at the time. Around the 1500s, European settlers implemented the abusive system of slavery as a way of getting cheap labor, which 200 years later would continue developing, becoming mostly composed of African slaves. Slavery had been somewhat normalized, but once the revolution began, some Americans expressed opposition to it. As Paul Kivel states in his quote, change starts with one person questioning, challenging, speaking up, and doing something to make a difference. So that takes us to Abraham Lincoln. As a newly elected president under a federal government, without a shame maintained his opposition to slavery, seeking to abolish it completely. But people tend to become afraid of what they don't understand, making the North and the South have different views regarding the institution of slavery, as many people benefited from it and couldn't understand how to get as many benefits without it, leading to the disunion and creation of the Confederate States. As previously stated, those who opposed to abolition were the ones who profited the most from slavery. So once the division was made in the South, there was a redistribution of power and resources. Being something new, the organization was somewhat disorganized, creating a social division in which few benefited. Due to the division, the South relied heavily on slave labor, particularly in the cotton industry, to maintain economic stability, which was not as effective, causing a constant increase in the slave values. On the other hand, the North, being the original territory, had more time and development. With the worldwide increase of industrialization, the North embraced manufacturing and trading as their main economic source, being able to fully abolish slavery in their area, while at the same time producing 90% of the nation's manufacturing productions, opening the path to focusing on the dilution of the weak Confederate States. It is very clear that not only did the territory divide, but the people as well, in many aspects that go deeper than just political or economic, but mental. Racism and discrimination against other ethnic groups had been normalized in the nation for years, developing enough to reach the point of not recognizing their humanity, which meant not being deserving of human dignity or climbing socially or form a name for themselves, forced to be slaves unjustly. So this war, arising and succeeding due to the pursuit of abolishing these ideas and embracing each other's freedom, shows the immense advancement that was made regarding this topic. New legal documents embracing the ideologies of human dignity and freedom were able to give those who were marginalized the opportunity to improve themselves. However, this also needed support from society, and these documents helped shape people's ideas. In 1862, Lincoln met with black leaders seeking to tell them about his colonization plan, which consisted on creating colonies outside of the United States. But he was taken aback by the fact they expressed opposition against it, because they had already built a strong tie to the United States. He did not realize this could happen, since from the perspective of privilege, he could not empathize with their experiences. As a result, he listened to them, creating a special political and social movement, the Emancipation Proclamation, in which he stated, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of the state that people whereof shall be rebellion against the United States shall be thenceforward and forever free. Society, this became very controversial throughout the nation, causing the dissolution of the Confederate States, since they no longer had an economic way to sustain themselves effectively. As a result, the lives of those who were slaves improved considerably, since they now had the freedom to choose the work they wanted to do and the time they spent achieving reasonable wages. Even so, there was always the possibility of slavery coming back after the war, so he made a permanent mark, the 13th Amendment, calling for the immediate abolition of slavery everywhere with no compensation to the owners. Lincoln was able to make changes regarding politics, but not society, which is why he was later killed by John Wilkes Booth, because he believed Lincoln had destroyed the Southern way of life, along with the United States Constitution. For this project, I analyzed the source of Out of War Animation from the website National Archives. I used it as my primary source since it was written by James M. McPherson, a well-known, award-winning history professor who managed to explain the topic in a very objective and complete way, including many details about the events that went down at the time, as well as their impact. It provided me with valuable information in order to reflect and answer my research question effectively, and unlike other sources, this one went further and looked into the significant terms as well as documents with significant impact on society at the time. For this topic, I chose a political cartoon from Abraham Lincoln and the London Punch. Cartoons, comments, and poems that was drawn in reference to what was happening at the time. What is perceived is both the North and South fighting and some black slaves watching from behind. They're sitting on a throne, watching how everything is going down, knowing that whoever was successful in the end would decide the paths of their lives. The fact that they are placed as if on a throne, sitting in the center of the cartoon, is a purpose of showing how slavery was the main conflict in this war. Out of all the other works I found, I consider that none of them portrayed it as effectively as this one, which is why it was chosen. This war came with great initiatives, which had impressive impacts, and for some reason it is, since humans are movable, which is why it is important to be aware of the notorious advances or regression that was made over time. For a change in society to occur, there must be personal changes first. So, taking this into account, in the aftermath of the Emancipation Proclamation, how was really the idea of human dignity shaped by freed slaves?
Well, those who broke free from slavery and their allies were committed to having an impact on how society was organized. They worked hard to secure legal protections and rights, as well as working against customs in society and stereotypes, using their freedom of speech to speak against prejudices that disregarded human dignity and maintained slavery in existence, seeking to build an environment that took everyone into account and judged them based on capacity, not ethnicity.